Should you buy or rent? This is a question that many people face at some point in their life. So I've decided to do a two-part video discussing the pros and cons of renting versus buying in the UK. This first video is going to give you the absolute basics where I share the pros and cons of renting versus buying a house in the UK. Whereas the next video will talk about the current market conditions and whether you should buy or rent in the UK in 2023. So if you're watching this after I've released that video, I will put the link to it up here and in the description below and at the end of the video also. If you're new here, then my name is Ollie, and on this channel we discuss all things related to personal finance, investing, and how to reach financial freedom. If that sounds like something you're interested in, then I recommend you subscribe as I upload new content every week. Also, if you enjoyed this video or get any value from it, then I'd really appreciate you giving the video a like, as it helps the channel massively. And feel free to share this video with anyone else who you think may benefit from it also. So the basics of renting. So firstly, when you're renting, you obviously don't own the house and you are paying a landlord to stay in the property. You will usually pay a deposit when you move in, along with a monthly sum to stay in that property. This may or may not include bills, utilities, and council tax, but every property will be different. When you're renting, the landlord has a lot more responsibility for things like maintenance and repairs, and these can include the structure of the property, heating repairs, electrical repairs, boiler repairs, etc., etc. But sometimes you have to pay for servicing of some appliances like boilers, so it's best to check your contract here. As a tenant, you will have to carry out general upkeep like cleaning the house, and any damage to the property will come out of your deposit. Where I live, a lot of rental properties don't allow pets, so it may be worth checking before you view the property if you have pets, but sometimes landlords are willing to negotiate for well-behaved pets. So what are the pros and cons of renting? If you don't know what you want to do with your life, or where you want to live, or how long you want to be in a location, then renting can be far more flexible. If you're uncertain if you want to travel or move to another area, then renting means you're only tied to that location for a fixed period of time. This is also a pro if you've got neighbours who are trying to be the next Guns N' Roses guitarist and don't have a concept of time. Yes, I've had to deal with this in the past and it's not fun. Normally contracts are a year or upwards, but you can sometimes get shorter leases. Normally the property comes empty, but sometimes they are furnished with a few items. So if you're planning to move around a lot, you will have to pay for a removal van each time, and normally when you move out you will have to pay for professional cleaners also. Renting has been historically a good way to save up for a mortgage, although that may not be the case at the moment as we face the rising cost of living, but more of that in the second video. But a big pro of renting is you don't need a huge lump sum to move in. To rent a property, you will most likely need to pay the first month's rent along with the deposit up front. In England and Wales, the deposit is capped at 5 weeks rent, but this rule doesn't apply in Scotland and Northern Ireland. So the negatives of renting. Obviously, the main negative of renting is that you don't own the property and you will potentially be paying off your landlord's mortgage. In addition to this, the landlord can increase the rent when your contract is up, which may make it unaffordable to you and in turn force you to move out. Or the landlord could even sell the property, which again would force you to move. I had to move 3 times in 1 year and it was a massive pain, so you really don't want to have to do something like that. Another negative of renting is that if your landlord is useless, then you may have ongoing problems with them. And while it's their responsibility to repair items, they may not do it as quickly as you would like. And they may be petty about keeping your deposit. One of the best things I can recommend you do here is to take photos of everything in the property on the day you move in, highlighting any damage, and make sure you have confirmation in some way that your landlord has received all of these pictures. This should help to cover you to some extent when you move out. So the basics of buying a property. On the flip side of this, when you buy a property, you'll likely have to get a mortgage unless you have a spare few $100,000 knocking around. Hello? Is that Bill Gates? Yeah, do you fancy lending us a few $100,000? I'll give it back to you in a couple of decades if that's all right. Nice one. Cheers, mate. Sam, bye. When you get a mortgage from a bank, They will loan you the money to get the property, but you will still need a deposit, which is typically 15%, but you can get 10 and 20% deposits. So if, for example, if it's a 300k house, then 15% will be 45k, but there will also be additional costs on top of this, such as stamp duty, legal fees, and surveyor fees, just to name a few. Plus, as a homeowner, you will likely have maintenance fees, which you should budget at least 1% annually of the total cost of the property, as well as any council tax fees also. So the pros of owning a property. Well, first and foremost, you will eventually own the property. Whereas if you decide to rent for the whole of your life, then it's worth bearing in mind you will still have to do this in retirement and cater for inflation. Also, there is a general expectation that houses go up in value. And while this may not be the case right now, normally in the long run, houses go up in value. And you could potentially make a profit if you sell a house in the future. There is a caveat around this, because if you were to buy right now, you may possibly end up in negative equities. So I recommend watching the second video for more details on this. Another benefit of owning a property is that you have the flexibility to do what you want, such as decorating a room, knocking down a wall, creating an extension with subject to planning permission, and you can potentially create additional value for the property. And another benefit of owning a property is that if you damage anything, then it's up to you as to when and how you fix it. But one negative of being a homeowner is if you need to relocate, then it becomes a bit more difficult, and you'll either have to rent out your current property or look to sell, which will likely be a lengthy process. And if you decide to rent it out, you're going to have to find a tenant and maintain the property for them, or get a property management company to do this on your behalf, which will come at a cost. So anyway, let us know below whether you prefer buying or renting, and if I've missed any other pros and cons of renting versus buying a house in the UK, then please share them in the comments below. And if you're debating between buying or renting, then the factors listed in this video are just the basics, and this doesn't go into the current market conditions. So I recommend you check out part 2, which is this video right here, and this goes into whether you should buy or rent in the UK in 2023. It's been Ollie from Get Geek Finance. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you over here next.